Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar on employee onboarding. What we're looking to cover off today is how we can effectively onboard new employees and also use some of those tactics in communicating with existing staff members through utilising services within the Microsoft 365 platform and Power Automate. The agenda is on screen as follows. We're going to be going through what the current challenges are, how we can use Power Automate, which is part of the Microsoft 365 platform, in order to achieve a lot of efficiencies and standardize that onboarding process for a new starter. We'll go through the employee onboarding application itself and a real-life demonstration of that as well. And then also inform you of some additional resources that we have available through the webinars that we've conducted to date. So what we're hoping that you'll take away from today is some information on how to onboard your employees remotely, understand the best use cases for this, and also how you can streamline and automate that process more effectively within your current systems. So some of the technologies that we'll explore today is the Power Automate platform itself, which is part of your 365 license subscription, how it all entwines with SharePoint Online, and Microsoft Teams as well. So just some quick introductions. I'm Mark Alford, I'm the Cloud Solutions Architect for Circle IT, and on the call today as well, we have our partner, Valto, and Hugh Valentine, who's the CEO of that organization.
Hi everyone, thank you Mark.
So to try and set a little bit of the scene on what we're currently facing challenges with, I mean, this isn't unique to a certain type of business. This is pretty much what we classify as the new norm at the moment. And as much as I don't like to try and brand around that phrase too often, what we're seeing is kind of additional local lockdowns or companies kind of tend to working from home more often than not now as a result of the situation we find ourselves in. So this isn't something that affects certain organizations. It's pretty much across the board, which has its own different challenges, shall we say, when we're looking at new employee onboarding. And what we see now is pretty much what you see on screen is everything is now being delivered via some sort of video conferencing service. In the main, what we're finding is either Teams or Zoom, but it's pretty much how people are doing business these days now, whether you're working with your teammates, other businesses, partners, customers. The de facto now is to set up a video call. Gone are the days where you have to travel X amount of hours in order to do an initial face-to-face meeting or a consultation. I think the majority of people that we particularly work with now are open to the kind of premise of doing video calls as an initial engagement piece, and only if necessary that you have to deliver services on site is that then entertained. So what we're trying to cover off today is, with this in mind, we're seeing a lot of technology challenges, but also people challenges in the main as well with these technology or the processes that come into play. Because what this has enabled a lot of organizations to do is to also look at the possibility of employing people that aren't necessarily within that geographical area that their business resides in. So that means that the workforce that they're able to kind of recruit from, that talent pool that's available, goes much further afield, which is then lends itself to requiring these types of systems to give them the ability to onboard those people remotely. So if you just think of the common challenges that we typically have to go through when we have a new starter, that's kind of looking at what IT equipment they need, what the process documents are, how they collaborate with their teammates, how they get up to speed, how they understand the company culture. There's a lot of things that kind of go into an onboarding process, and that is the first experience that somebody will have of your organization, and likewise of the organization of them as well. So it's quite key that these processes and that, well, the particular onboarding process is streamlined and to make it as welcoming as possible for that individual. And a lot of the challenges that you typically have in that current process world is that the workflow is quite rigid. It's not automated very well. It has a lot of cracks that things typically fall down through, and it's not really efficient in the main. So that experience for the employee can be quite difficult. And I think most of us now in kind of a modern world, not related to COVID at all, but just in modern kind of society, if you look at the experience that you typically want to have from interacting with any sort of organization, it needs to be slick, it needs to be efficient, it needs to actually deliver what you wanted to deliver. And I typically compare that to my experiences when I have to do online shopping. And the best experience from my personal perspective is when I have to shop at Amazon. It's an app on my phone. I just go on there. I've got the option to do one click and I know it's at my door the next day. So you kind of want a similar experience when you're onboarding your employees into an organization. You kind of want them to have all the information at their fingertips. You need them to be able to have access to requesting new information or new hardware and things like that. So all of these things can be streamlined and automated within this Microsoft 365 ecosystem that we'll show you shortly. So on that note, I'm going to hand you over to my colleague Hugh, who's going to run through what the applications look like within this 365 platform.
Perfect, thank you, Mark. I'll share my screen, give me 2 seconds. So you should be able to see my screen now. On Mark's presentation, he outlined what the current processes looks like for a lot of organizations. So it typically is a very, very manual process. If you're used to onboarding employees or you've been onboarded yourself recently, it's usually you arrive at the office, you're passed a load of pieces of paper with your contract, the handbook, the documents, and then you're told to go off and read those and sign them. It's a very manual process. And the fact of it is, it doesn't really work in a remote environment. If you're expecting to help him onboard employees effectively who are working remotely, you don't really want to have to post them over the contract and all the other pieces. There is a much, much better way to do that. So what I have on screen at the moment is a translation of what the process could look like using a Power Automate flow. So I'll just describe how this works, and then I'll jump into some of the examples and show it you in action. So first of all, we have the employee added to the onboarding list, which basically means that when an employee is created, we fill in the details of the form. That includes their information, which I'll show you shortly. And what we'll then do is we look to send them an external portal. So before they even join the organization, we have the opportunity to really help that employee get up to speed. So we could create a portal that basically outlines what the company culture is, what the vision is, what they can expect on day one. And really it kind of sets the scene for what they're going to be getting when they start the organization. The flow will then wait for the employee start date. So when they actually become an employee and they have an email address within the organization. If there's an issue in that process and the employee doesn't join for whatever reason, it will then set that employee to inactive in the list. When the employee does join, we then notify the employee internally and we can give them access to a different portal, and we can also create some tasks for that employee. So this is just basically translating an example of how we could automate that process using Power Automate. And there's definitely scope for improving this process as well. So for example, we could even add a step in here where I could look at perhaps if we use a signature tool such as DocuSign, then within the Power Automate, I can look for the DocuSign portal and I could perhaps send the employee their contract before they join and they could sign that automatically as well. So there's scope for this to be improved. But this kind of functionality is a good starting point for an employee onboarding. So how this looks, I've got an employee onboarding list. So this currently contains all the employees in the organization, their departments, and some other useful information. So it's a very, very basic HR system that gives us just a portal where we can access some of that useful information for them. When I hit new, I have the capability then of filling in this form. So I can put in their name, I can search for their employee reference, I can set their appraisal date, and it can integrate with some other systems perhaps down the line. We can select what department they're going to be responsible for. So if we fill this in for myself, fill all the details in, appraisal date, we do have a system that starts appraisals. So we could say, right, we're going to do an appraisal with this employee after 3 months. We could set their manager, so we can just put whoever in there, and we can set their personal email address. So this is important because this is how we could send them that pre-onboarding portal before they join the organization. So I hit save. That then can send a notification to that employee before they start in the organization. So in my personal email address here, I've got a welcome to Valto. I'm able to jump into this and I can see we're really looking forward to you joining the organization. Please join our portal, and it provides information to help you on our first day, including our values, our culture. So if I just click on this link, this is the employee pre-onboarding template. So it's just an example, but this would obviously be tailored for your organization. And you can see here, we've got a welcome message. We've got a welcome message from the CEO where they've explained in some of the culture and vision. And as we scroll through the page, we can see the values of the organization. We can see there's some segment on balance in work and life. We can see the benefit package that you'll get as part of being an employee. We can see some of the key people in the organization who you might want to connect with, perhaps on LinkedIn before you join. What typical life looks like at the organization. So this can be a news feed that updates automatically. And then we've got the Twitter feed, which just shows the external news. So this is a fantastic opportunity before that employee even starts in the organization to basically start to get them up to speed, explain your vision, explain your culture and your values, get them used to what your company's about, and also get them used to some messages from the CEO. It's a fantastic opportunity to sort of market the company as they're looking to join in the organization. Alongside this, as part of the flow, we've obviously moved from the employee onboarding. We've sent them the link externally, and then we wait for that employee's start date. When that employee does start, we have then a checklist that we're able to send. We have 2 checklists for the employee. So we've got this first checklist here. We've got all of the policies that that user will need to read on day 1 in the organization. So the health and safety, the handbook. And as they go through, they'll receive an email for each of those, and they can mark them off as read to say that they've done it. And then this will tick off to say that it's completed. So it's just tracking that they've read and understand each of the policies and core documents that you need to get them to read on their first day. Alongside this, we can also send a checklist to each of the key departments in the organization. So we can notify IT to get them a laptop configured. We can make sure that HR is setting them up in the relevant systems. We can make sure finance getting them added to the systems. So this gives us a checklist for every department, who's responsible for that, and then a reminder in the background. So we're not forgetting, IT doesn't suddenly arrive on day 1 and said, nobody told me about this laptop, and then we have the scramble to try and get that sorted. It's easy. We have a due date. We have the person responsible on the department, and they'll be getting regular reminders in the background to make sure that that's completed. And as they are completed, they can check them off in the list as so. So this is covering both the employee checklist, all the things that they should do on day 1, and also what the department should be doing throughout that journey as well. Alongside this, you've seen the pre-onboarding portal and the email that they receive. But when they start in the organization on day 1, they will also receive an email to say, welcome to the organization, and we can take them to a slightly different portal. So the idea of this portal is, if I jump in to show you the email basically is very similar to the first one that I showed you. Welcome to the organization. Here's our employee onboarding. And then there's just a few more pieces of information about what we're providing. So our values, our culture, a welcome message, and then some different checklists that they can go through. So how that looks, if I click on the link for employee onboarding, again, another portal. This one's much more tailored to how can we get the most out of that employee on their first days in the organization. So let's get started. They can click this link and it'll start to take them on the journey. But as I scroll through the page, there's some information on how the company was founded. There's another message from the president and the CEO and the leadership team as a whole. We've got a segment here on who you can meet. So we could perhaps assign them an onboarding buddy. We can use Microsoft Teams. They don't have to be in the same department. They could be someone that's also recently joined, and we can use Microsoft Teams to help them communicate and start messages and basically get involved. Have a one-to-one with your manager. So it's just giving them a checklist of things they should start to consider. Join an employee resource group. So again, we could use Microsoft Teams or Yammer to develop these resource groups. And perhaps if the company has regular networking events, we're able to set those up too. Further down, there's a load of financial checks that they should do. So set up their bank payments, make sure that they know what the travel expense policy is, understand when the payday is, and it just gives them all the financial information on the first day, so it's nice and easy. And then at the very bottom, we have the opportunity to provide them training. So something that we've been working on is kind of a Valto university. So obviously we're onboarding a lot of employees. We just want to streamline that process and make it as easy as possible. So within Stream here, we have a channel, we have the Valto Academy, and then within here, we've got all of the videos that we've started to develop about the different products that we offer for our clients. So what's our intranet? What do custom development projects look like, and what do these other applications look like? So that means that the employee through the portal can get an immediate steer on all the stuff. Perhaps it's not duplicating efforts where someone has to continually go off and show the employee directory. It's giving that employee a self-serve portal where they can go and get their own information. And we can also use it to show perhaps the historical announcements and news of the company as well. So a really good space for that. And then as we scroll through the page, it's just kind of got more information. Another key part of this is tied in with the checklist that I mentioned earlier on. So if I was to go into the Let's Get Started page, there's a new hire checklist. So this is tied in with the policies that I mentioned. These are all the things that the employee should be looking to do for the first day. And again, tailored to your organization. So attend the virtual employee orientation, which was our academy. Set up your profile picture so people know who you are. Join the various groups and complete the training sessions. So there's a full, perhaps month of tasks that that employee has available to them to go off and checklist and just make sure they're happy. Also on their checklist, there's some questions. So who do I contact if I need HR help? Who do I contact if we need IT? And some other useful resources as well. So just put in those people. So on day one, it's nice and easy to find that information. And then the final piece is each department has the opportunity to create a similar portal as well. So if I was to go to sales, if I was onboarding into sales, sales can develop this portal to welcome them to the team. They can explain who the key members are within the team, so who they need to contact, what the mission is of that team, so a bit of the vision and value perhaps of that, what the culture is, any sales programs that they want people to join. They've got their own checklist for making sure they understand how their role fits and what they should be doing, who the latest people who've joined the organization are. So I'd appear on this list to say, welcome Hugh. And then again, just some more information on there. So these portals provide a really fantastic onboarding experience. And when you're struggling to do those face-to-face meetings, or perhaps you're just looking to remove the duplication of efforts rather than the team constantly having to do onboarding meetings, perhaps we can start to use these portals and videos to provide a tailored experience and remove some of that duplication. So in essence, that is kind of the high level of the flow. We've obviously onboarded the list, we filled in that form, we sent them an external portal before they even join the company, and potentially we could improve this by adding in the contract. We wait for the employee's start date, and then when they do join, they get a checklist to say, here's all the tasks that you should be completed, and here's access to our onboarding portal. So it gives us the full access to that side of things as well. And that's it. Over to you, Mark.
Cool, thanks, Hugh. So I think now might be a good opportunity to answer some of the questions as well that have been posed during that demonstration, if that's all right.
Yeah.
So the first one that we've got here is how difficult is this to set up and manage?
So we've described a process. We've pre-packaged this as an application. So Mark is going to go run through and show the costings around the different modules we have. So if you were to take our our module, it would be very, very easy to set up and manage, and we would help you through this process, which would include setting up the pre-onboarding portal, the onboarding portal, and then the relevant department ones. So it's quite a simple process to go through once we've done that.
And then ongoing management, I presume that's something that kind of internal HR teams or IT teams can kind of look after to update the content on a regular basis?
Yeah, exactly. So as part of that, the project, we would train the relevant teams up so they fully understand and know how to utilize the platform then.
Fab. So we've got another question here from Cressida. If there's personal info entered in the form used to onboard, I noticed, for example, birthday in yours, where is that info stored? And is it easy to set retention policies and all of that info for data protection? Presumably, these forms need to be developed alongside new documentation to record where the info is stored and how it's handled.
Yeah, so this is the HR view, really. This is where not everybody wouldn't have access to this page. This would just be where I'd come in as the management team or the HR, or if I'm a line manager, I'd be able to see my relevant employee. So it's restricted down to only be able to see my own information, or if I'm a land manager, I can see everything, or if I'm a HR person, I'll see all of the information in this portal. This will tie in with retention policies. And we can even tie in, as part of retention policies, there is something called events. So a key part for retention is we need to keep Steve's details for 7 years, but only after he's handed his notice in. So the timer is indefinite until that point where he's leaving the organization. So using the events that exist in retention policies, we could extend this flow to say, right, Steve's leaving the organization as a trigger, and then that counts the retention policy and starts that 7-year timer from the date he leaves. So that's kind of something we could work with you on to customize and build that additional functionality within there. Hopefully that answers your question.
We've got last two. So is this only for new starters, or can it be used to track existing employees' understanding of current documents?
So this onboarding application is integrated with another application that we have, which is our kind of policies system. So obviously, if for new starters, that's going to be something that's happening in the middle of this, but the policy system contains all of the policies for the organization, and it provides some additional functionality like review date, reviewer, approval date, and approver. So on this date every year, it'll trigger a review with the relevant person. And when that becomes published and becomes a new version, we have a policy tracker, which can notify every single current employee to say there's a new data protection policy, and that you can see that everybody's read this one apart from Faye, and Faye will be getting a reminder in the background to do that. So really the onboarding app is fantastic for helping with new employees and making sure they read these policies when they're joining sort of midterm. And the policy system is great for existing employees, and when there's a new policy, rolling that out to everybody to make sure they've read it.
Thank you. And the last one, can the videos be restricted to only show department-specific material, and can the videos be shared externally? So
as part of Stream, we're able to tailor which channels available to who, so we could make this available to everybody, or we could make it available just to certain individuals. So we could create a department for each channel, and that would be restricted then, so only that department has the capability to see it. The videos can't be shared easily via Stream. Unfortunately, at the moment, we can't share them externally, but we could in the pre-onboarding, you can upload the video as a separate video, and that enables them to watch it. So there is some options around that.
Great, thank you. Okay, so let me just share my screen again, and we'll cover off the remainder of the presentation. Okay. So how can I get this? Hugh, if you wouldn't mind just giving a brief overview of the Power Platform itself and kind of what's included with what you've just been talking about.
Yep, so the Microsoft has the Power Platform, which includes all of these applications. So we have Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, and Virtual Agents. Now, included within most Office 365 plans, you can have Power Apps and Power Automate, and we can do a lot of the functionality for free. So everything that I showed you today is built using the free Office 365 plans. Now, Power Platform has some additional plans that you're able to purchase as an extra add-on. So if you want to integrate Power Apps to external systems and stuff. But I think the key takeaway for today is the applications we've showed are available for free in the existing Office 365 plans.
And to cover off kind of what Hugh's been demonstrating today as well. So there's kind of three components to what has been demonstrated today. The first one is the employee onboarding and offboarding. So that includes things like the employee checklist, the employer checklist, and the links to the leave request and leave allocation and manager. And we've allocated the cost to these as well. So for that initial employee onboarding and offboarding, that's an upfront cost of $2,500. And as Hugh mentioned, that doesn't have any licensing requirements for it anyway. That will be included as part of your 365 license type. Clearly, there's a prerequisite that you need to be on Office 365 in order to get that and the right licensing as part of your plan. We've also got the employee onboarding portal, which gives you the pre-onboarding portal, the onboarding portal, and 5 department-specific sites, and that's 2,100. And then you've got the employee role-based authentication, which enables a lot of the automation outside of that to automatically assign the user to the group, create the user's account, and also associate them with the roles and groups and provide that audit log for reviewing. So those are the kind of three components that we associate with what we've just demonstrated within this application process. So what we've also got as well is there's a couple of other services that we could provide as part of this. So we've got the ability to create Canvas Power Apps. So these are low-code applications that complement these services that we've been talking about today. So if you're looking for a leave request form, for example, this is an example on screen that we can kind of create as part of this using the Power Platform. We've also got model-driven Power Apps as well. So if you've got a requirement to kind of have some visualizations within there, so fundraising, for example, that's currently being demonstrated, that allows us to create an application specific for your organization around that Power Platform service. And then Power Automate, which is what we've been talking about and what's been included today. So if anybody's familiar with the if this then that type scenario, it is purely a logic-based decision-making process that allows you to create these automation processes. So it's not very difficult to be able to create those kind of decision trees in order to get it. It's about working with you and understanding the logic that needs to go behind this. So I don't know whether you just want to cover these off quickly, Hugh, in terms of other application sets that you've delivered around these subjects.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got a whole host of different applications to kind of replace all the manual processes within an organization. So we have a project management application, which is used for creating automatic teams, automatic SharePoint sites and document areas. So it's great if you're following a set project process. And it's also got some components in there for time tracking against projects as well. The leave request system is designed to replace a manual leave request form. So if you're currently using Word or Excel or anything like calendars to manage leave, this will replace that completely and provide an app that you can open that will submit requests and manage their allowances and go through an approval process. Expenses is really simple. It just allows you to use a mobile application to submit expenses and take pictures of receipts. The HR one really is what we've covered with the onboarding, and the vehicle inspection and auditing. They're kind of just ideas that we have where we've developed custom applications for organizations, so we can pretty much replace any A4 application using this platform. if you'd like to get a further demo on any of those, then just get in touch and we can arrange a session to show you exactly how they work.
Thanks. I think that hopefully one of the key takeaways that we've kind of gone through today as part of the employee onboarding process is that we've covered off pretty much what the technology piece is to this bit of a puzzle as it stands, because one of the key things that we all need to consider as part of this remote working culture is the culture of the organization and how that's kind of maintained. And by having the right technology processes underpinning what we do from a process point of view, that will hopefully lend itself to establishing that right culture and maintaining that cultural balance within any organization that uses it. Because that, as always with these types of projects, there is that balance between technology and culture and making sure that they work together as opposed to one of them outweighing the other, which tends to then lend itself to poor dynamics within that organization. So if this has been of interest for anybody today, what we have the ability to do is conduct remote workshops as well for anyone. And these can be on various subjects. So anything that's of interest, we're doing various webinars at the moment on a number of different technologies, all within the Microsoft stack. And sometimes it's quite difficult to ensure that we capture everything because the platform is so vast. So if there is anything that you would like to discuss with us further, we can deliver remote workshops, which are all recorded. So you've also got access to the recording post the workshop as well. So if that's of interest, please get in touch with us and we'd be more than happy to talk you through those. Or even if you just want a quick chat to discuss some of your requirements or some additional demonstrations, please do that. I'm more than happy to do that as well, free of charge outside of the workshops. We'll send around a copy of the slide deck and a video of the presentation, which will be uploaded to YouTube afterwards. But between Circle and Valto, what we've essentially got now is a number of videos of our webinars and different demonstrations and things like that to try and help organizations as much as possible with the technology that's available to them within their licensing type in that 365 ecosystem. So please feel free to take a look at those channels. And also take a look at the 365 roadmap and security center, because with any sort of distance working or remote working, I should say, sorry, then that needs to have a factor into it when it looks at what that roadmap has and also the security that comes with this. So if you're not currently securing your documents and services within that 365 platform, but enabling remote work, there's a risk there around data protection. So it's just something to bear in mind. I think we've covered the majority of the questions as we've gone through the presentation today. So on that note, unless there's any final remarks from anyone through the questions, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everybody for their attendance today. And we will, as I mentioned earlier, send an email following up from this with the video and slides. So thanks very much all. Look forward to
Perfect, thank you. Cheers everyone.